Hello everybody, it's Tomebinder, and in this video I'm going to be doing a step-by-step tutorial for anybody who's interested in making boss fights in Ancient Warfare 3. It's divided into two main sections today: simple boss fights and complex boss fights, so you can get information based on the level of complexity you want to make. With that out of the way, let's get started. Obviously, the first and most important aspect of a boss fight in Ancient Warfare 3 is going to be designing the encounter, and to do that, the first thing you want to do is build your arena before you even make the boss. What I did when I made arenas for Good of the Company bosses, and so it's a technique that I would recommend to all of you. And there are also some differences in how you're going to want to design the arena depending on whether or not this map you're making is only a boss fight or if it comes at a different part of the map. For instance, if you fight through some regular enemies in normal sections and then a boss, you're going to want to consider how you design the preceding sections. But for this map, I'm going to make a dedicated boss fight with nothing before it. So it's going to be very simple. I think we're just going to make a big, tall forest, and this will be some kind of cursed stone ruins, and then that's where we'll place our boss. I'm pretty much going from nothing here. I'm starting from scratch. I have some notes on what I want to make today, but I'm going to be going through this process and hitting all the bases I need to be covering for you. So we'll start by doing a little time lapse of me designing this boss arena. It's always a good idea to paint multiple colors onto environments to add texture. This boss battle will be set in a craggy mountain range, which works well for obscuring the player's vision and creating a sense of scale. Credit to Maradusa for making this great castle, which I'm placing in the background of this map to add to the sense of scale. The walls of the boss room will be different from the rest of the map, consisting of rocky cliffs for walls and dirtier terrain. Okay, what I'm going to be working on now is a boss door, because the player will be approaching the boss fight arena and entering through a specific route which I'm currently creating. This is, of course, entirely optional. You don't have to add a door in front of it, but I'm going to be following a sort of Dark Soulsian method for this boss fight, just because I like that style of boss design, and I haven't really done something like it before, so trying something new today. Now it's time to add invisible walls, preventing the player from leaving the main path or boss room. Now we're going to script the boss door. To do that, we need to make 2 scripted walls, both of them set as invisible, and 3 triggers. These scripted walls will start off as enabled, meaning the player can't walk through them. But in practice, this first scripted wall will open up when the player enters the first trigger, allowing them to go in between the 2 scripted walls. After they've passed through the first scripted wall, they'll enter into the second trigger. This will close the first scripted wall behind them and open the second scripted wall. This makes the player only able to go in one direction, which is into the boss room, and forces them to go to the fight. Once they pass through the scripted wall, they'll go through a third and final trigger that closes both walls behind them and keeps them stuck inside the boss room. Let's script this out and then test it. If this is confusing for you, I am going to upload this map on the Steam Workshop with comments to explain everything that's going on. Well, the door works. Now let's design our boss unit. At least the boss unit for our first phase. So we're just going to place him down right here. He's going to be a blue unit, so he won't target the player right away. And we'll just call him boss for now, the placeholder. I'm working on developing some lore for him right now, just in my brain, so we'll give him a full-on name and backstory in a bit. We're going to place him down right here as a placeholder unit. He will be developed more, and his boss fight will be refined. The very first thing we want to do is create a global script simply called boss fight. Now for a very simple boss fight, that's all we're going to need. There's not going to be any need for making this complicated. You just need one global variable to contain all of the relevant scripts to keep everything as orderly as possible. So as you can see, we have a trigger right here, and this is going to be what initiates the boss fight, because not only is the fog wall closing, that event, tied to the player entering this trigger, but it also is, obviously, once you're inside this trigger, you're inside the boss room, and you cannot leave until the boss dies. So, let's tie some scripts to this trigger. Trigger enter, and we're going to take this script, and to get our boss going, first of all, we're just going to have it set the target to the player. Very simple. So that will set the boss to target the player, and they will keep obviously fighting until they die. But there is something else that is pretty important that a lot of people have asked me about, which is a boss health bar. So I'm going to add that in right now. And I know that I just said we can only use one global script for this, but I'm going to add a second one because I have already saved a prefab script for boss health bar, which is right here. And you can pause right here if you want to see exactly what you need to do. But this is the default one that I'm using, and this boss has only 2,000 health, so we're going to change this float to 2,000, and this will be the name of the boss right here. So I'm going to just call it placeholder for now. I have all these variables left over from good of the company. So there's an important thing that we want to do to set up for later stages of creating this boss fight, and to do that, first I want to delete these variables, but it's going to involve global variables. So don't be intimidated by the use of global variables for just a simple boss fight, because this is going to be an important foundation that you can use for making really complicated boss fights, and I'll explain how in a second here. So we're just going to place down one global variable, not script, and we're going to call it active boss unit. That's what we'll call that. So obviously the input type here is going to be unit. Now what this is going to indicate is for the purposes of getting the health of the boss, as in, how damaged it is, how much health it has remaining, this is what's going to be referenced. So I'll show you in just a second what that means. Let's get back to the reset scale here. We're going to start out by setting this global variable to the unit we have already placed down. And for this simple boss fight, that's all we're going to need, because there won't be any phase changes, or there won't be the boss going through any animations or anything like that. So it'll be very simple, but this will be helpful later down the line. To do that, we have to convert the variable into a health input, and then get that health input, which is a float, and turn that into an int, an integer. So that's going to constantly update the health bar with the health of whatever active unit is considered the boss throughout the battle. So I will show you what this looks like. It's a very simple script that will allow you to have a nice little visual at the top to make the boss fight seem much more epic and official. So to initiate this boss fight, we're going to start out with a passive unit that's going to be this boss, and then once the animation runs, we'll switch it over to a hostile unit, and we'll go from there. So first thing we want to do is delete this unit, then we want to go to custom unit, open up what we have saved already, change the unit type over to passive, get rid of this weapon, and now we're good to go to start. We're going to use a waking up animation that I've already previously used before, that I'm going to use for my RPG map actually. You can see this guy getting up from his sleep. That's about all we really need, so we're going to have it do a end. So this is what he'll look like when the animation has ended. So we will do it like this. When the battle starts, we're going to pause his animation. When the trigger to initiate the battle happens, or is entered, then we're going to hit start animation for that same passive, so we can just reference it a second time. See that? So pause the animation when the battle starts, and then play the animation once you actually enter the boss fight arena. And then when the animation ends, then we will replace this unit with a non-passive unit who will start targeting the player. And we can just simply take that from what we have already saved. That'll be a good start of battle animation for you. We're going to add a little bit of complexity here now by setting the global variable for active boss unit. So this essentially means that at the start of the battle, this unit will be what the scripts are looking at for taking damage, and if it takes damage, the boss's HP will go down. But when the animation ends, the spawned in unit will become the active boss unit. So now that we've done that for that one, let's kind of separate these scripts up a little bit so it's a little easier to understand. We're going to copy and paste this node, and there we go. So now this spawned in unit will become the active boss unit, and we're going to do it this way. On damage global, we're going to get what unit has been damaged. But first, we need to get what the active boss unit is. So first of all, before we do anything, we need to get the active boss unit. And if the active boss unit is the same as the unit that has been damaged, then we do something interesting. But first, we need to set a regular variable to be boss HP. We could make it a global variable actually to make things easier on us. I think we'll just do that. So hold on one moment. Next to the active boss unit variable, we will create a second one called boss HP, which is an integer. So now here's how we'll work this. If the unit damaged is the same as the active boss unit, we're going to get the damage taken. So we'll do a float to int here. We'll get the damage taken by the active boss unit. We will get the boss HP, and we will subtract those two things from each other. So essentially what we're doing is just grabbing the boss health, and if the active boss unit is damaged, we'll take how much it's damaged by and subtract it from the boss health. So now we have a universal boss health that will remain the same even if you change the units that are being considered the boss. For instance, if you need to replace the boss unit a few times to do animations, this is going to help you. So we'll do subtract now. We will subtract from the boss HP, and the thing we're going to subtract from is, and the value of what we're subtracting is the damage taken. Now we're going to set the global to be boss HP minus whatever that number is. So this is what you'll need to do if you're going to have any sort of multiple phases for a boss fight. This is how you're going to have to work it. If the boss unit is going to be replaced by units to do animations and whatnot, this is a script you absolutely have to have, or it will be bugged out. So I'll show you what I mean by all this. It's a little confusing, I think, just to hear what it means. This means we also have to change the boss fight script now. So all we have to do is have it get the global variable, which is the boss health, and replace the scripts that were referencing a single unit. So, get global variable, boss HP, into float, and everything should work just fine now. We also need to make sure that the boss HP thing is set to 1000 at the start, because that's how much health we want our boss encounter to have. And now we're going to have to get rid of this on death trigger. Instead, we have to do an update node, so it's always checking to see if the boss HP is below 0, and if it is, that's when it'll run the end of battle script. So if this int is smaller or equal to 0, that's true. We will get a one-use little bool here called battle ended. There we go. We will get battle ended. And if it's false, we'll set it to true and play the end battle script. This is to make sure the end battle script only happens a single time. Alright, so now we're going to test all this out. I think it should work, but there could be a mistake I've made. And to test it out, we're actually going to use a gun, because we need to be able to damage the boss right away during his animation play. So we'll get an S4. Alright, we're going to check this out and see if it works. Let's just put some bullets in here. And go. Alright, it seems to work. As you can see, it was taking damage and affecting the boss HP while it was doing the animation. And that carried over to this guy. Now instead of a gun, we're going to give the player a crossbow. And now we're going to work on creating phases to this boss fight. In particular, I think we're going to buff up this boss's health up to 10,000. Or actually, maybe more like 6,000. I think I'm already at 6,000 actually. And we'll see how strong it is. But anyway, now we're going to start going back into this boss fight global variable. And this is where we'll add phases, okay? So he starts out in his first phase, obviously, he's just a melee unit who goes after the player. We're going to script it now so when he goes down to less than 4,000 health, but above 2,000 health, he will one time summon in a bunch of minions. Alright, so I'll tell you how we want to do that. Just checking here if we want to include that as part of this script. I don't think we do. I think we can make it a separate script. Although actually, it could probably just as well be added on to the end here, but I think there's, just for the ease of visibility, so this script, this very simple and necessary script, remains the same. I will not add on to it. This will be a little redundant, but there's no big problem there. So we're just going to simply have this ready at all times, getting if the damage is being taken by the active boss unit. And if that's true, we're going to get the boss HP and determine where it lies. So first of all, we need to see if it's larger or equal to 6,000. Sorry, I meant 4,000. See if it's larger or equal to 4,000. If it is larger or equal, nothing happens because we're still in the first phase. If it's not, if that means if it's smaller than 4,000, it's false node. We need to get something new. We then need to get if that same global variable is greater or less than 2,000. So here's how we're going to work this. So now we have these two things up. We don't have to do anything here, because if it's true, that means it's over 4,000 health, and we're still in the first phase. If it's false, we need to get and see that it lies within the 4,000 to 2,000 range. And if that's true, there is something we have to do here to get this. This is where we're going to script in the new phase. So now I'm going to create the look of the boss for his second phase. I don't think it needs to be anything special. We'll just get two Greek swords. You know, the Greek swords look kind of cool, I think. I'll have him dual wield them. We'll put his health up to 10,000 because it doesn't matter. His health being referenced for this unit is boss HP, not his HP. Okay, yeah, I think let's give him a balaclava here to show that he's a bit wounded. So I get the RGB values. Four 7 1 3 4 2 3 6 4 7 1 3 4 2 3 6. Copy that, paste it into the other balaclava. So now we can clearly see that he's been wounded at this point in the fight. We'll call it Boss 2 for Boss Phase 2. So you could play an animation here to make the transition more smooth to the second unit. I'll probably end up doing that, but for now I'll just have it be a quick replace unit. Just gonna have it get the active boss unit, and then replace that with this second phase unit, and then we'll set that one to be the active one. I should also add a little bit to this script here that makes sure that when the battle ends and the boss health is below 0, it will then immediately set the health of the active boss unit to be 0. That'll add an extra layer of protection against glitches here. Unit to health. Get global. And the global variable is going to be the active boss unit. Set it right to 0. And now we're good. This will ensure that the boss fight ends properly. So now we're going to take everything we have and put it all together. Do another playtest here. Make sure everything's working as intended. Okay, so it looks like the set target script, the reference broke when I removed the first guy, so I need to change that script so that it will set the boss to target the player. Otherwise, it's just a blue unit. I could make it a red unit, and that would make things... Well, I guess in some ways it would make things easier, but if it's a red unit, it could target the player when you don't want it to target the player. That's why I tend to use blue units where possible. So we can make them do all the same things. Yeah, we just have to have it set target, and then the unit that's having its target set. First, we'll just have it get the active boss unit. And then set that target. We'll do a get player, so yeah, just do a get player. Player to unit. And this will have the new hostile unit target the player when it spawns in. This reminds me then that we have to have it so every time the active boss unit changes, we have to set the new active boss unit to target the player, which shouldn't be that difficult. Don't worry, we just have to do pretty much the same exact thing. We'll just copy and paste this script. Get rid of that, we don't need that at all. And then, we've already set the active boss unit, so no need to do that, but we will get the active boss unit, which is this new guy right here, and have it target the player just like that. There we go. This will ensure that the boss is actually hostile towards the player, which I assume is what you want if you're making a boss fight. So, let's test it out again. And things seem to be working as intended now. Alright. So now we're just going to test to make sure that the phase change works as I've scripted it, which is essentially that once he gets down to 2/3 health, he becomes injured and starts using 2 swords. Oh! Well, there's a glitch right there. So essentially this unit did not have enough health to be in line with the boss HP, so we have to buff him up to 10,000, essentially. That's what that means. The second phase unit has enough health to follow the boss HP, but this guy does not. We'll just edit that unit to be up to 10,000 health, because it's at 1,000 right now. If you just put the health... So if you're going to do it this way, where the unit is changing, but you're having one consistent boss HP value, you need to make sure that all the boss health is just super high. You don't have to follow any particular convention. Don't set their health to the boss HP, you don't need to. You just set it as high as possible. Because the boss HP will run independently of any of the actual health bars of these units you're using to represent the boss. The boss HP is calculated only by the damage taken by these units. And that is then subtracted from the start value. Huh. You know what? Dismemberment's still on for him, I bet. Let's make sure this guy has enough health. Let's put him at 10,000. In fact, is dismemberment even off for this person? Let's check. It is. Must not be off for the first phase unit, so hold on. Hold your horses, everybody. Edit. Huh. Then I think the problem could be that this is still at 10,000. Oh no, it's still at 6,000. Alright, the phase change seems to be working properly now. I'm not quite sure what the meaning of that bug was. So from the looks of things, it's also replacing the second phase unit with the second phase unit every time it's damaged, because the health is still falling between 4 and 2000. To do that, fix that, we should just add a bool to make it a one-time script for the replacement of the unit. That should not be as big of a deal. I had no idea why it wasn't surviving. That phase 1 unit was dying, even though there was still plenty of boss health remaining, but I'm glad that seems to have resolved itself. I'm not quite sure what I did to fix it. Anyway, we'll make sure that this only happens a single time. To do that, we'll introduce a phase variable. And we're going to get the phase first off. If the phase is 1, which is what it would be the first time the script runs. If that's true, we will set the phase to 2, preventing it from running a second time. And that's all we really have to do there. That should ensure that this all works out properly. So now we've created a 2-phase boss fight, everybody. Exciting, exciting stuff. But of course, we have to do a 3rd phase, and that'll be a little more complex. There's a couple more things we want to do with phase 2, and that's essentially just spawning in a few minions, so we can prepare the player for the onslaught of phase 3. Feel free to pause the video if you need to get any of these scripts down for your own projects. This map will also be posted on the Steam Workshop if you need to directly take scripts. So I think we'll just set a few certain places around this arena. It'll be like rocky circles. So I think how we'll do that. And those areas will be where the minions of the boss are spawned in. We'll get some blue flames going on inside those circles, and they'll teleport in with a future explosion. That's kind of an aesthetic I like. I've used it a lot, so you don't have to, but this is what I think I'll do. These will be the teleportation flames. And this is a much simpler idea than what I've just done. Essentially, we just want to make a custom unit, and then we'll have a one-time script run when the second phase begins, spawning in a couple of these units at each portal. They'll be very weak. Maybe 100 or 200 health, really. Not much. They're really just going to serve as distractions to the player from the boss, the threat of the boss. So, yeah. Maybe a smaller shield would be better, yeah. Then, no. No, of course not that one. Not that one either. Hold on. That could work pretty well. Let's take a look at what helmets will work. Maybe this one. So we'll just do that. We'll just say minion A. Very simple. We don't have to place it down because we'll be summoning the minions in with scripts. So this is a fairly long script, so I'll go down to a new line here. After the active boss unit has been, created, then we will cause some explosions to happen. But first, I think we could use that with an array. Let me think here. What would be the best way to make this happen? I think we should get an array of float 3s. Because then we'll be able to reference this array for spawning in units and explosions. And it'll consist of 4 float 3s, because there are 4 places where things can spawn in. There's 4 of those teleportation fires. Just connecting it to the array now. So one will be right here. Then another here. Another here. And if the units aren't able to leave the rocks, which I'm thinking may be possible in a second here, I will remove some of the rocks and allow them to leave. Now what we're going to do is an end loop, which will run exactly 4 times, because that's how many times we need it to run. So there'll be 4 minions spawned in this phase. Fairly simple stuff. End loop, we're going to get elements now. Actually, we should be able to do 4 each. This is something that I was taught by Noida Wizard after my ultimate scripting guide. You just have to do 4 each. Attach the array. Right now it'll run once for each thing in the array, so 4 times. Then we'll do an explosion at that position, and then spawning custom unit at that position. We'll also have to set it so that the spawned in custom unit sets its target to the player. Now we'll fill out the relevant information for both the custom unit and the explosion. I'm going to make the explosion do 0 damage, because then it would damage the minions and that would serve no point at all. It'll be a future explosion. And like I said, I'm using the for each node, which something I just recently learned, so I think it should work, but we're going to test it now to make sure that it does. Yeah, I think... Okay, I think we're going to try this now. See if it works out. I think it should. Perhaps I should, instead of setting it to 0, just have it kill the active boss unit. Okay, there's a few ways we can make our script more sophisticated here, people, and I will show you them now. First of all, let's see what went wrong when it didn't change the second phase. Ah, okay, I know what happened. I didn't set the phase to 1. It was at 0 the whole battle. But when this guy, the Maul unit is spawned in, we need to set the phase to 1. And that should fix that whole thing. And now we're going to go into the boss HP bar and make sure that instead of setting the health to 0, or the active boss unit, we're just going to do a unit to health and then kill the health entirely. That will ensure that the battle is completely over when it says foe defeated. Okay, let's give this a second shot, everybody. I think it should work now. So now we have to go back here to where when the unit's damaged, it gets the health. So if the health is below 4,000 and above 2,000, it'll play phase 1. If the health is below 2,000 but above 0, that's when we'll play phase 3. Let's move this whole script up and out of the way. This is the whole phase 2 script right there where it summons the minions and stuff. Up and out of the way, folks. No need for that anymore. We are going to use some of the stuff that we have set up there. We'll just copy and paste it over, or use similar ideas. Well, anyway, if that's true, we're going to get the phase. If it's below 2000 but above 0, the first time it is, we're going to get the phase. And if that phase equals 2, then we will set the phase immediately to 3 to prevent this from replaying, and run the third and final phase. Okay, so now we have the basic script for a one-time phase going on here. Now we have to decide what's going to happen. I think the thing we want to have happen is we're going to make this villain seem a bit more demonic. I have some lore for him. So he's going to be sort of a king that's been he's traded for various cursed artifacts. He's trying to become more powerful by using these sort of demonic things. So he'll gradually, throughout the fight, a more demonic appearance. We're going to just take that right away, I think, and work using this as a baseline. So I think we're going to have him no longer dual wield, but he will be very much aggressive. Perhaps we could even have him be a feral zombie. We have to be really careful then, because when his minions spawn in, it could cause problems. We'd have to script that out. Do we want to have him be a feral zombie? Oh, why not? Two, 4, 1, 3, 4, 2, 3, 6. I don't think that's exactly perfect, so let me get the RGB value. 4, 7, 1, 3, 4, 2, 3, 6. Yeah, okay. Alright, and we'll get that for gloves as well. 4, 7, 1, 3, 4, 2, 3, 6. And now, because we've made him a feral zombie, even though he looks like a blue unit now, I'm going to have to add some scripts to make sure that the minions he summons in ignore him. I think this is going to be possible, everybody. We'll see. So now I'm just going to take this from up here. And just move it back down here. All this does is it's just going to get the active boss unit and replace it with this new, more demonic looking figure. Then it will get the global variable for the active boss unit and have that new boss unit target the player. Now what we also want to have happen is we need to make sure that none of the minions that he spawned earlier target him, and none of the minions he's about to spawn target him. So, I think I figured out a way to do it. Once these minions are spawned in, and we've set their target to the player, I don't think they'll target anyone again. But once we test them, if they do target this new feral zombie, I have a way to prevent them from doing that. We're going to assume that the set target supersedes his minions' desire to kill the zombie unit. Anyway, I'm going to do another for each. And let's see if this works. Let's do this without any extra frills and see if these 3 phases all work as intended. There's definitely ways to make this boss fight more deep and add some more atmosphere, but for now we're just going to make sure that the bedrock of the mechanics work the way they're supposed to. Hello! Gotta go fast with this guy. Can't give him any openings. Whoa! And okay, now we're at phase 2. The shields definitely make these guys a bigger threat. I think I'll have the first wave of these minions occurs in phase 2. I think I'll have it have no shields. The phase 3 minions will have shields. Then I'll turn off grenade fire. Alright, we gotta get this guy down to 2,000 to make sure that everything works the way it's supposed to. Oh boy, yep, it works. It works, everybody. Let's make sure. Everybody here is targeting me, right? Not the feral zombie. Yep, I think that's the case. Okay, we're good. We're good. So we can have a feral zombie in the same battle as normal enemies, and they won't target each other. They'll all target me. So everything works great, folks. Soon we're going to a few more features to add some more depth. Then a little more atmosphere. Just polish the whole thing up and get a finished product. I think we'll just change the minion from the first phase, or sorry, the second phase, to have no shield. So only the phase 3 minions have shields. We'll also take away their helmet to make that third and final phase minions more distinctive. Okay, I think let's think of a way to make this more distinct final phase here. Let's kind of darken the crown a little bit, maybe. Maybe the pants. I wonder if there's any Lord swords that would work better here. Or we could go with the Lord of Fire. We could do that. I don't think we will. I think we'll stick with what we already have here. The Greek sword. We've made him a little more distinctive for his final phase. I think that's about all we need. Okay, let's see. What else can we do here? What else was I going to show everybody? I've showed you how to do 3 phases now. Scripted events, things like that. Here's something I'll do. So you may wonder, what's the point of going up to this boss fight if it's just a boss fight? It's a dead end. So we will add a little entrance that will open up when the boss dies and take us... it'll take us to the end of the level. So essentially when you enter this place, the level will end. And then you can go on to the next level, which will presumably be inside this castle. See, I wonder if there's a better kind of roof we can use here. Something like this I think I would prefer to use rather than a flat floor. There we go. Now we'll do some stone door frames. And very simply, we'll just have these be locked at the start of the map, and then when the boss fight ends, they'll become unlocked. Alright. Let's make sure these are locked. And just for good measure, let's put destruction off for everything here. Gotta lock these again though, I think. Yep. So now these will be locked. Inside we'll put a trigger that ends the battle when they're opened. Or sorry, when you enter in. And let's get some smoke in here too. This is an extremely simple script. All we're going to want to do is trigger enter, end battle with a victory. Now we'll go back to the boss HP bar script. And when it kills the boss at the very end of the fight, we'll just have it set is locked 0. Well, technically we'll set is locked to false because this is a bool. So hold on a moment. Just add that onto the end there. Add yet another end of battle event. I'll reference both doors. And it should be good to go. Okay, now I think what I'll do is one final test. I think it's okay that the smoke is rising off here. It looks kind of cool. Let's add a little bit of fog. And let's make it a little bit darker. The sun around? No, it's not. Let's slowly go through the process of making this a more atmospheric and epic battle. Alright. Ready to face me, Buster? We're going to play through the whole boss fight now. Make sure that it all works as intended. And if it does, we'll get to the more, less mechanical stuff, the more surface level things that the player will immediately observe, like a little more work on the environment, and some music even. Let's deal with these minions. Excuse me guys, please just, and the sky really is the limit, especially when it comes to those minions. You can even set them to have randomized skill levels, so some of them will be much stronger than others, and some will be very weak. If they're on a consistent skill level, you can find them all bunching up and making it not so fun to deal with them. And here's the final phase. The minions are not connected to any end of battle script. The main reason for that is they're not the boss. They're summoned in by the boss and they serve as regular enemies. So once you kill the boss, you will still have to deal with them. I could get rid of that, and perhaps I will do that. Foe defeated. There we go. Now let's go in here and see how it all works out. Works out great. So that was the boss fight in its more rudimentary form. Now I'm going to do a little more detailing to the environment, I think. Alright, I found a good song, I think. And I have officially named the boss. It's called Stip, the Messenger King. Basically, like I've already said, the lore is that he sort of gradually became more in tune with these demonic artifacts. And now obviously he has the ability to raise skeletons to be his soldiers. And he's guarding the entrance to this much larger castle, which is where all the great bosses and evil kings have gathered. But he's one of the more minor ones, so he gets to stand guard for this conference of evil. Anyway, I've also added some more fog, and I've added a trader called Sir Xavier, and these guys, well, this one particular guy, will trade various weapons with you, so you can change your playstyle if you want. So the final step in the process of making this boss fight is simply to enable friendly fire, because the boss is technically a blue unit. That will allow us to attack the merchant, but you know, I've always been kind of a fan of giving the player choice, even if the choice allows them to be evil. So if you do want to attack this completely friendly merchant man, I won't stop you. But now we should be able to damage the boss and bring down his health. So I'll go through the whole motion now and show you the sum of all this work, and you can see the fight against Stip, the Messenger King, in all its glory. Before this boss fight commences, I just wanted to say thank you everybody for tuning into this guide. It's a lot longer than my usual guide. I've only made one so far, but this is a bit of a break from it because it's not scripted and it's a little bit longer, but this covers, I think, the necessary bases to allow you to start making some pretty cool boss fights. And obviously, I will go into more depth about this in later guides. I have a guide planned now for making smarter units that can help you with boss fights too, so these guides can kind of work together to complement one another. Well, that's all. I'll roll the boss fight now. If you want to support me, feel free to subscribe, leave a like, or you could follow my Steam Workshop to see what I make. That's about all. Let's roll the boss fight.